Continuing on with the Clone Wars in the Battle of Umbara arc, I hopped on over to the next episode on the list, Season 4, Episode 9, Plan of Dissent. The insurgency, the Umbarans, have stepped up their attacks. As Krell says, they want their airbase back. Obi-Wan is talking to Krell on a hologram. Kenobi tells Krell that the enemy is still receiving supplies despite this airfield being taken. A supply ship is directly supplying the Umbarans. While this conversation is going on, the transmission gets fuzzy. Kenobi is cutting in and out. They think the enemy is jamming their signal. This moment serves a few purposes. To show the broad scale of the invasion, but more importantly, it's used as a narrative device to further isolate Krell and the troops from the overall strategy. Its purpose is to not allow Kenobi to give advice, kind of keep Kenobi in the dark. You know, if Krell told Obi-Wan his strategy, it's possible, even probable, that he would reject the balls-to-the-wall aggressive tactics of Krell. So the episode, in a clever way, is able to isolate and further put Krell in charge of the troops that we see. Communication troubles means that they are on their own, which means Krell has full control over their movements. Rex and Krell are talking. Rex is adamant about trying to send a signal to Kenobi. Just keep trying to send a signal in order to coordinate an attack. Krell, of course, denies this request, any request. And I'm guessing Rex will kind of disregard the chain of command and try to get a message out to Kenobi any way he can, that's my guess. My favorite aspect of this arc is when the troops are grumbling, voicing their gripes of Krell. There's a scene early on where this is once again on full display. We've had scenes like this in the previous two episodes, but this one was a bit different. With each discussion, Rex seems to further be pulled away from his code of following orders no matter what. With each conversation, he seems to be pushed into taking action without approval and disregarding Krell's commands. And this conversation seemed like the moment where he decided to try a new tactic. As was said by one of the clones, I can't remember who said it, but one of them said Krell's desire for victory has blinded him to the fact that lives are at stake. The conversation is heavy with those sentiments, a feeling of what the hell are we doing out here? Again, the idea that Umbara is the Vietnam of the Clone Wars is even further on display. More men, we need more men, just keep pushing, just keep taking the same hills, more men. It's a numbers game. It's interesting to see this come into play. Despite Rex's dissenting views, he decides to tell Krell about the plan involving cracked codes and the stolen Umbaran ships. A plan that was devised by the clones that he talked to. A plan that, just like every other plan and every other suggestion, Krell flat out rejects. Fives and Rex have a heated conversation. Rex can't seem to bring himself to pull away from this code, can't break away from the chain of command and following any order, but Fives is adamant. He can't blindly follow orders. The links in the chain are being broken one by one. Fives says he's going to round up some pilots, and it would seem like he's going to take things into his own hands despite the consequences. When they're squabbling at the top of the chain of command, officer to officer, that trickles down to the men. Disagreements and arguments blossom. When there's infighting in the ranks, it can quickly get out of hand and spread. And that is exactly what we're seeing. Even though Rex agrees with Fives and the other dissenting clones, he just can't seem to bring himself to support their unauthorized plan, at least overtly. So Hardcase is in the cockpit of an Umbaran ship trying to figure out how to fly it. He's bumping into walls, accidentally firing the guns, causing chaos and setting off alarms which alert Krell. The scene where Fives is talking to Krell on the communicator thingy is right out of A New Hope. I liked this moment. When I first saw the wackiness of it, I was a bit hesitant, a bit indifferent, but it wasn't as over-the-top silly as I kind of was anticipating going into it. It was goofy. Obviously, if you're test flying an enemy aircraft, you're not just going to start mashing buttons and moving the controls all over the place. You're going to take it nice and slow, but the moment wasn't that bad. It served as a tiny bit of comedic relief in a sea of tension. But Hardcase accidentally blows up the hangar door, which forces Krell to investigate. And I really like the next scene. Fives and Hardcase are kind of trying to bullshit their way out of the conversation. They say the fighter was booby-trapped, that's why it fired, that's why the hangar got destroyed. They're making a story up as they go. Kind of a classic scene where two people are trying to talk their way out of a situation, making up excuses on the fly. I liked it. But it only solidifies Krell's opinion that the fighters are dangerous, that the clones aren't able to pilot them, and that the plan to fly them is the wrong plan to take. But Fives, Hardcase, and Jesse decide to put the plan into action anyway. Before they do, they go talk to Rex. I love this moment. It was a moment of respect. They respect Rex. They want to include him in the conversation. They want to tell him that they're disobeying orders. They want him to know. They're not looking for a blessing from him necessarily. They just want him to know because they respect him as their captain. Because they know at this point, they're not just fighting one enemy in the Umbarans, they're fighting another enemy in Krell. Bad orders, bad strategy, a lack of leadership, and in a way, Krell is more of a threat than the Umbarans. Krell is just constantly kicking them to the wolves on suicide mission after suicide mission. And Rex tells Fives, Hardcase, and Jesse that when they are caught, there's nothing that he can do for them. And they understand that and move out anyway. We see the Umbaran ships piloted by Fives, Hardcase, and Jesse lift off and fly from a distance. The camera cuts to Rex looking at them take off. He has a little smirk on his face, as if to say, "Good luck, you crazy sons of bitches." When they get out of the atmosphere, they fly right into an enormous space battle. I was expecting to see some friendly fire from the Republic forces, like a little scene of Republic ships chasing and firing on their captured Umbaran ships. That type of thing seemed so obvious to me that I'm really surprised it didn't happen. It wouldn't have been necessary, of course. I'm just surprised it didn't happen. So they're able to fly inside of the Separatist ship. They fire on the reactor, as was stated earlier in the episode about Anakin telling them that when he was younger, this was the strategy that he took to take down one of these ships. But in the nick of time, ray shields pop up, blocking the reactor from their fire. Now they're sitting ducks, getting pelted by blaster fire. Their ship shields are starting to fail. Hardcase decides to take matters into his own hands. He hops out of the ship, detaches a missile from the ship, runs around the ray shield, and pushes the missile directly into the reactor. Before he does though, he turns and looks at Fives and Jesse and says, "Live to fight another day, boys. Live to fight another day." And then boom, Hardcase sacrifices himself for his pals. I don't know why, but I'm a sucker for moments like this in shows and movies. Putting others ahead of yourself, taking a heroic stand in the face of certain death, and doing what has to be done to save the many, to save your buddies. And in the Clone Wars, it shows that there's a true brotherhood among the troops. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Before I watched the Clone Wars, I never would have expected them to be able to pull off a bunch of clones being individuals, but damn, they did it. Farewell, Hardcase. When they land after a successful mission, Krell requests to see Fives and Jesse. Krell, of course, reprimands them, but then Rex steps forward and fully takes the blame. But Fives steps in front of Rex and tells Krell that Rex is just trying to cover for him and that he actually is the one to blame. It's kind of an I'm Spartacus moment, where you would rather have the dire consequences of actions you took be placed on you rather than your leader and your pal. Now, go watch Spartacus. The movie, not the TV show. The Stanley Kubrick movie. So, Krell says they're going to be court-martialed and executed for crossing him and disobeying orders. And that's how the episode ends. This might be my favorite episode in the arc so far. The whispers of revolt and insubordination have come to a head. Orders are being disobeyed. The chain of command is breaking. The troops don't believe in their leader anymore. They've decided to take matters into their own hands. And there's like a measurable line throughout this arc so far of Rex's mentality. At the beginning of this arc, he was steadfast in following Krell's orders. In the second episode, he was a little more wishy-washy, not agreeing with the orders, but going along with them because of his belief in the chain of command. And in this episode, he's completely turned a corner, looking past orders being disobeyed, giving his troops kind of the go-ahead to do their own thing without flat out saying so. He's complicit and is willing to suffer the consequences. I love it. I'm honestly bummed that I only have one episode left in this arc. I really hope it has a satisfying ending. If I had to guess, there might be some violent infighting among the troops, clones who believe that Krell is in the right and that they should follow him no matter what, fighting against troops who don't believe in Krell's strategy and methods of command. I could be wrong, I'm probably wrong, but even just to have an armed standoff among the troops would be really interesting. Kind of different mindsets going at each other. We'll see. On to the next episode. HelloGreedo, out.